Here we go, my lovely little graduate school to go or not to go. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rachel Gruver. I am a current graduate student in the master's degree program of educational leadership with a focus in higher education here at FGCU. I am currently interning as a graduate intern with Career Development Services. And a little extra fun fact about me, I work full-time here at FGCU in the Human Resources Department. So that's a little bit about me. Before I continue with our presentation for today, I just want to let you know I've been there. I've been in your shoes. I know exactly what it feels like not knowing if graduate school is the right choice or not. I actually graduated from FGC with my bachelor's in health science administration a couple of years ago, and I went right into the job field. I worked at Lee Health for a year and a half, and I just decided that field wasn't for me. Nothing against Lee Health, they're a wonderful company. It just wasn't right for me. And so I decided to do a career change. And during that, I was working in administration. So I felt like I can really work administration anywhere. So I was like, hey, why not go back to my alma mater? I always say that word wrong, and work at FGCU. So I applied there for a job. And then I also applied to graduate school after a lot of research. Let me tell you, I did a lot of research trying to focus on what program I wanted to do and specifically at what school I wanted to go to. And so I narrowed it down to FGCU. And honestly, I saw it as a win-win. I'm like, hey, maybe I'll get a job. Maybe I'll get into grad school. That's fine either way. I wasn't really looking at the lose-lose opportunity of not getting either or. But I'm very grateful that I got both opportunities within the same month. I got into grad school of March 2019, and then I got a job here in April 2019. So I was very grateful for that opportunity. But of course, today we're going to talk more about graduate school, to go or not to go. And so I'm hoping this presentation will let you help decide on if graduate school is the right path for you to take now or later. And then I also wanted to help prepare you for graduate school, such as researching schools, program deadlines, financial options, stuff like that. So with that all being said, some questions for you all. And you are more than free to use the chat. I just want to get to know you a little bit. So I know there's a lot of questions on here, but basically I want to hear from some of you, and Hannah will be my wonderful assistant to monitor the chat. But I want to know who is going to graduate school right after graduation, who wants to go to graduate school but after some job experience, what your current year is in school, what graduate programs you're thinking about. If there's some staff members on here, you can just say you're a staff member. And what are your reasonings for going or waiting? So while we wait for some of those answers in the chat, I just wanted to get an overall feel for who I have here today so that I know how to cater it a little bit more, like who exactly wants to go right away or who is still thinking about it. Honestly, I'll probably be going over a lot of different things anyway. That caters to everybody. But still, I wanted to just wait and see who we have here today.
We already have some responses in the chat, Rachel. Someone says after graduation and hopefully the online accelerated master's in education program. Someone else is a staff member. And it's totally okay if you're just here to kind of learn about grad school and see if it's a good fit for you. So let's see. Someone else said after a few years of working as a staff member. So it looks like we have a good bit of staff members on here today, which is awesome.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep going. It's really good to hear a lot from you. Oh, I see a couple more came in.
Someone else said staff member, and then someone said, I'm still thinking about things, so I don't know if or when I'll be going to grad school. I'm a senior graduating in fall 21, thinking about geology.
Okay. So we got a fair variety of people, which I love. The more the merrier, honestly. So now I got to know you a little bit better. Some items to think about. And I do want to let you all know, I wanted to just go through the presentation and we'll have plenty of time to do a Q&A at the end, but feel free to ask questions in the chat because we'll look at those first and then we'll let anyone respond. Unmute yourselves if you like at the very end so we can see if we can answer anybody else's questions before we end today. So some items to think about. And these are just, oops, let me move the little camera so I can read it. So some items to think about. Do I have a clear understanding of what I want to do for my career? So are you second guessing yourself, or do you have a clear timeline on how you're going to reach your dream job? That's something you want to think about when you're applying to grad school. Next, am I prepared for 2 to 5 years of additional schooling? Are you ready to continue your education without a break? Would you rather take a gap year? Would you rather gain some job experience before continuing to graduate school? Again, some items to think about. Does the field or program I am interested in prefer work experience before getting a graduate degree? So make sure you research your career path to see if getting some job experience first can benefit you more than going straight to graduate school. One example I always go to is with a master's of business administration, an MBA. Most likely, once you get out of with your bachelor's degree, you can get job experience. And honestly, some employers can help you pay to go to graduate school. So you don't even have to go straight into graduate school. You can already get the job experience and then go to graduate school while working or whatever you prefer. A great example of this is with me right now. I was lucky to get a job here at FGCU and I work here full time, and they pay for my schooling. I have the tuition voucher program here. And so it's 6 credits a semester. I get it paid for. And honestly, when you're in grad school, you don't really want to take too many classes. It depends, of course, on your own schedule. But for me, 2 classes was perfect for me per semester. So it worked out. So definitely something to think about. And this leads to my next one. Am I able to afford attending graduate school? So what are some ways that you will pay for graduate school? Have you done the research to know how much graduate school will be and how you can afford it? So some topics for today. We're going to go over selecting a program, a school, financing your degree, application timeline, testing, whether you need to test or not, personal statement, and letter of recommendations. So let's begin with selecting a program. So make sure you research different programs to find the best one that fits your career path. Be aware of different program requirements and deadlines because some college programs may require you to take the GRE, like that exam, but maybe a different program at a different school has it waived, or you don't even have to take it to begin with. Next is master's degrees with highly specialized areas. So you want to make sure the degree that you're focusing on is correctly aligned with your career goals. So an example of this, let's say you want to go into a career with environmental advocacy. So should you pursue a MS degree focused on environmental science, or should you get a master's degree in public administration with a concentration in environmental policy? It all depends on the research you put into looking, as well as which program's coursework aligns best with your career. An example of this is with educational leadership with my current program. I definitely did the research at different schools because I narrowed down the program I wanted. I wanted to know what school I wanted to go to. So 2 items I looked at, FGCU and UCF, University of Central Florida. They both have educational leadership programs. And I looked at their coursework to see which one catered to what I specifically wanted to learn. And honestly, for me, FGCU had the right idea with where I wanted to go. And that's nothing against UCF. They just had a little bit more research in there that I just wasn't interested in. And so this also leads me to, where'd my mouse go? There we go. This also leads me to application deadlines. This is kind of what I was mentioning about with the make sure you research different programs beforehand, because deadlines are different at different places, as you can guess. So at FGCU, those are the deadlines for applications, and UCF, and this is the same exact program, educational leadership, the same program, but different deadlines for the application. And I do want to note that the stars by the FGCU deadlines, those are priority deadlines, but still you got to think about that applying early might be beneficial, but you also want to make sure you apply before those deadlines. So just make note of that when you're doing research on a program. So selecting a school. The research and application process can be very time consuming. So start early. Honestly, I would say start the entire process a year and a half before you wish to enroll. And this is just because this is for people who have no idea what they want to do. So research is key when I say take a year and a half to focus on what you want to do, because you also want to think about paying for it, and the application process, how much stuff you need to put into it, like testing and all of that. So as part of the school selection process, consider these factors. 1, tuition costs. Is it a public or a private university? You got to think about the differences. Private schools tend to be more expensive, more pricey. And so if you're someone who's tight on money and not sure how to pay for it, you might want to lean towards more of a public university. Geographic location of the school. So this is in-state versus out-of-state. Are you someone who wants to stay in-state? Like right now we're in Florida. Would you rather stay at a school in Florida, or would you prefer out-of-state? You got to think of that because that's also costs. It's usually cheaper with in-state. Out-of-state's a little bit more money. Also, you want to think about, where do you see yourself working in the future? So let's say you're in Florida right now, but you see yourself working in Texas. So I would say it's probably a better idea to get your degree in Texas, just because if that's where you see yourself working and that's where you see yourself living, it's better to already start building those networks, building those connections, because if you're in school, you could be working as well and you can already be there making connections, stuff like that. So definitely think about where exactly you want to go. Reputation and quality of the program. So this kind of leads into accreditation, ranking of the university. I would say reach out to the program coordinator in the specific degree program you're interested in, and see if they can provide you with a contact information for a current student and alumni. And so I only say this because you want to get an idea of the quality of that specific program. And so when you're reaching out to a current student in that program, you can already get an idea of if it's working out or not. They can give you the pros and cons, what's working well with them, what's not working so well. And if you reach out to an alumni, you can see if this program had prepared them for their current career path. So you can already get an idea of if this specific program works out for you as well. Selectivity of the program. So this is your chances of getting in. An example of this is with our physician's assistant program here at FGCU. They get around 200 applicants, but only 20 are chosen. So if it's a competitive program, be realistic. Do you think that your GPA or your engagement in the community, is there something that sticks out that you can compete against more people to get into that program? Or is it kind of laid back? You don't really have to compete. There's not like only 20 students per year that comes through. Just think about it that way. And if you're being realistic and you're like, I have a great GPA, I have all of this written out for me, then go right ahead and do it. I know some people might have a lot of schools that they're applying to, and it might be hard to narrow down. That just might be one example to how you can narrow it down. Culture of the program. So a big one for me is campus tours. And so for me, with a culture, to get an idea of the school, for instance, I look at the overall mission statement and vision statement. So that's definitely something I did at FGCU. I looked at their mission and vision statement to see if their statement matches my values. And so more specifically with the program, a campus tour can assist with this. So you can always get a better feel of the school and the program when you're actually there. Plus, you can take into account, let's say you're in the program, would you prefer a cohort, which is you're with the same group of people the whole time you're there? Or do you prefer a more flexible program where you can take classes and you might have the same students in certain coursework? Like for me, I do see a fair amount of the same faces and names in my program, only if they started at the same time as me, if we have the same sort of coursework, like electives wise, I should say. However, my friend, she's in the doctorate program of PT here at FGCU, and her program is a cohort. So she's going to be with the same group of people for those whole 3 years. So it just depends if you want to be with the same group of people or you want to be more flexible and see different people. When are the classes offered? So there's two things with this. One, some schools have evening programs, which allows students to work full time while attending school. There could be weekend classes, online courses, hybrid courses. You definitely want to look into that, because if you're a deal breaker is like, if this class is online, this whole program's online, I don't want to do it. Then definitely do the research, look it up. Because I know with this pandemic, a lot of the whole transition to online can cause people to not get used to learning, especially if online learning is not for them. So if you kind of already know online learning is not for me, you definitely want to look for a program that you know majority of the classes are in person, or even if you're okay with a hybrid course, that's fine too. Also, when are the classes offered? What I mean by this, as well as the admittance, I don't know if I said the word right. Like, do you get admitted to the program only every fall semester? Are they very specific? Like they only admit people one semester per year? Or do they do it in the spring and fall? Or spring, summer, and fall? So you have a little bit more time. Like, oh, I missed the deadline for the spring semester, but I can at least get in for the summer. So you got to think about that too, because if you miss the deadline for the fall and they only have fall admittance, then you're waiting a whole year to reapply. So you just got to think about that. And lastly is faculty. So you can always go to their program website and see what faculty you're going to be working with. Do they have practical experience in their field of expertise? Are there faculty members that share your areas of interest? You can always check their research if that's more specific where you're going. Are there one or more faculty members that might be good mentors for you, given your career goals? These faculty members can potentially be your professors or mentors. Could you see yourself working and learning with them? So definitely look up faculty members that you can see yourself being with. And then research as much as you can on the schools you apply to. Most graduate schools apply to several programs. And so take this into account if you're trying to do research. I kind of already mentioned some of these, excuse me, but first ask your current professors. Maybe there's a professor that you're with, currently learning with, who went to a similar school that you're going to go to. Are there in a particular program that you're looking into? So let's say psychology. Go to your psychology professor and see how they got there, what programs they looked at, so you can get a feel for it. Plan a campus tour. I already mentioned this, but it will help you research and narrow down your choices better to get the overall feel for the campus. And of course, next is with speaking with admissions representatives, meet with current students and faculty. You can, of course, do this at the campus tour, or you can always reach out via email or phone and reach out that way to get an overall feel of that kind of school or program. Utilize college websites to your advantage. I'm not kidding. I think I attacked so many college websites with their resources. I looked everywhere possible to figure out where I wanted to go and if this program was right for me. I looked at their coursework. I looked at their admissions requirements. I looked at the faculty members I would be working with. I think I asked the program coordinator so many questions. I'm like, I hope this is not too much information that I'm trying to get from you. And they were completely understanding. So it's kind of like, don't feel afraid to reach out and ask questions because they want to help you. They want to have students come to their program, come to their school. So reach out. What if I'm accepted into multiple schools? Well, first of all, congrats. That's amazing to be like admitted to that many schools. So here's the thing with that. You can already make a chart with narrow down like ranking wise with your dream colleges to your backup colleges. So you can always narrow it down that way. If you're someone that's tight on money, it can be easy to narrow it down very quickly if there's a school that's worth $60K a year compared to one that's maybe only $20K a year. So you probably would prefer the one that's a little bit more cheaper and in your price range. If you're someone that's more of overall quality and you don't care about the cost, you might end up going to the one that might be a little bit more pricey because the quality goes up with the reputation. So think about that. Completely okay. This is not a negative. This can actually be used to your advantage because during this time, maybe you can always reach out to the school if they haven't already told you why you were not accepted. You can always ask them, hey, what exactly made me not accepted into the program? Was your GPA too low? Was your test scores too low? Was there something that they didn't see? Or was it just narrowed down by the sense of they're filled? They already had a certain amount of people and you just didn't make that number. So it doesn't hurt to reach out. So then you have plenty of time to work on, let's say, the test scores, work on your GPA. And during that time, you can also gain experience, maybe work part-time, volunteer, intern places, or of course, even get a full-time job. It doesn't hurt trying to get experience while you're still waiting on getting back, trying again into graduate school. Keep trying. Oh, I had a wrong mouse. Here we go. Financing your degree. So here's a good one. Make sure you understand all the expenses involved. This information is typically available on the school's website. So look into financing options available, such as the following. So there could be assistantships, fellowships, grants and scholarships, and loans. I know loans sound scary. You don't want to take them out, but there may be some low interest loans that can be available to graduate students. And I also want to say, ask program coordinators about assistantships and fellowships if you don't see any on their website. Most people don't know about the assistantships and fellowships, and this could be something you can easily do. And I do want to say financial aid packages based on both merit and need are first come, first serve. So it does not hurt to submit your application early, because be aware that some programs, such as law schools, you're not going to be able to work full-time, maybe even part-time outside of your coursework. Again, mentioning my friend who's in the doctorate program for PT here at FGCU. They told her point blank, you're not going to be able to work full-time, let alone part-time in this program. It's very academic heavy. She's taking, her first year, she took 6 classes per semester, and that was the doctorate program. Compared to me in my master's program, I only took 1-2 classes per semester. They're very relaxed. You don't have to take 6 in a semester. Again, we have very different career paths. And so I was lucky to still be able to work full-time while juggling schoolwork. Of course, it was a lot. I had to narrow down my social life, but that's okay. I let my friends know, hey, I'm working full-time. I'm trying to get my graduate degree, and they completely understood. And of course, everyone's different. Maybe you want to take 1 class instead of 2 classes. Maybe you want to take 3 classes instead of 2 classes. It all depends on you. But with financing your degree, you definitely want to think about your options before putting in the work to apply to school if you're not able to afford it. So, graduate school timeline. Okay, so with the application process, this requires you to stay organized, especially when you're applying to multiple schools. So please keep in mind that admission and application deadlines, as well as requirements, can vary widely between schools. Please, please, please do not wait until the last minute to submit your application. So create a timeline that allows you for considerable flexibility in case you decide on you want to retake an exam, let's say. Make sure you have plenty of time to get letters of recommendation put together. Also, some schools will make acceptance decisions throughout the application window. So they might not even have a particular deadline, maybe just a priority one. But if you wait until the deadline, there may be fewer spots in the program, and it could be even more competitive to get in. So please apply early. So this application timeline, it's based on if you're applying to a deadline that's a year from now. And I'll show you an example. So you can always cater it to whatever your preference is, whenever you want to go to school. It doesn't have to be in the spring semester you have your deadlines. It could be later in the year, but that's just the example I'm going to provide you. And you can actually find more detail of this application timeline in the graduate school guide created by Career Development Services. So let me show you the example. So the first one is January to April. This is the time you want to start researching, get organized, talk to your professors, and create a plan. Next would be over the summer, when you register and prepare for exams, such as the GRE, LSAT. This is when you want to research financial options, begin working on your personal statement. We'll talk about personal statement a little bit later. And of course, you want to work on your resume or CV. Assemble a portfolio if you need to, or the materials for a portfolio, I should say. And plan campus visits if desired. This is the time you would want to do that. It's over the summer. Next would be between August and September. Finalize on that personal statement and resume/CV. Request letters of recommendation. Again, I'm going to talk about letters of recommendation a little bit later, a little more clear. Order your transcripts and take those standardized exams. And of course, I'll talk about testing as well a little later. Now, in October and November, this is when you want to make sure everything's complete. Your application forms are done. Complete that portfolio if that was necessary. And of course, follow up with the faculty you sent letters of recommendation or who are going to be giving you the letters, because you want to make sure that they're finishing up so you get them and you can provide them when you finally submit all application materials. Again, this timeline is just in case you wanted to submit all your materials in the spring semester. So you have a full year to get them all collected, get them submitted. But again, it takes a year or maybe year and a half for you to do this whole process because it's a lot of research. You want to make sure you plan everything out to a T. So testing. Most graduate schools require that you take a standardized test for exams. And so most common tests are the GRE, Gmat, LSAT, and you also want to keep in mind the time needed to study and prepare because for most law school applicants, for instance, they'll study for up to 9 months for the LSAT. So you just want to make sure if you're a poor test taker, if you want to take some test prep classes, go right ahead. I'll admit right here and now, I'm a poor exam taker. I am not well when I do exams. I can write papers for days, but exams are not for me. So definitely when I had to take the GRE, I had to take some test prep courses. And of course, it doesn't hurt to buy your own test prep courses if you're someone who is hands-on and you want to learn yourself. You can get a book yourself from Amazon or anywhere. I think I got mine from Amazon a couple years ago, and it's only like $25. And it has you study and then take exams, some tests at the end, and you can get the answers, see where you went wrong. But of course, again, if you're not someone who does it yourself and you want to go into a test or a test prep class, I should say, definitely do your research and look for one. I think FGCU actually offers some test prep classes, so you can definitely look that up on our website as well. Personal statement. Okay, I promised to talk about this. So personal statements are sometimes called a statement of goals. So admission committees use these to help further assess your qualifications and your fit with the program. So personal statements are meant to be very personal. So yours should be different from other candidates. It helps you stick out compared to other ones. You don't want to make it generic. So you're basically telling a story, and make sure you answer all the questions. If they want a personal statement that's 600 words long, make sure it's 600 words long, no less, no more. So not 550, not 650, 600. And so some examples of what a personal statement will entail. You're kind of talking about your interest and motivation in the occupation, program, field, and institution. So discuss how you became interested in the field and your career goals. Why you want to attend that particular school or program. Reasons why you believe you'll be successful in this particular academic program or field. So this includes personal characteristics, maybe integrity, perseverance. You could talk about special skills or related experiences, any unique qualifications that may help you stand out from other applicants. If appropriate, you are more than welcome to talk about any obstacles or hardships that you may have overcome. Of course, with this past year with the pandemic, there could be something you highlight on that you overcame because of this surprise pandemic. I don't want to call it a surprise, but it was a big transition when it hit everyone to go from in-person to online. So you can always talk a little bit more about that. And of course, it does not hurt to have someone proofread your personal statement. So definitely, I would say reach out to Career Development Services. You can make an appointment with a career advisor, and they can help go over this personal statement with you, because please do not wait last minute. It's going to take multiple drafts. It might take up to a month to get it perfected. So you definitely want to talk to somebody if you're having a hard time trying to finalize on a personal statement. Feel free to reach out to any one of our career advisors. And with letters of recommendation. So with this one, I wanted to at least talk about letters of recommendation, because when applying to graduate schools, you'll most likely have to provide some. I know I did. I had to provide 3, and I'll talk about myself a little bit in a second, but I wanted to highlight on this beforehand. So these letters provide an opportunity for people who know you well to describe your skills, personality, and potential for success. So please note, some institutions want letters from faculty, while others want professionals in this specific field. So for me, for instance, When I was working at Lee Health, I worked in a family residency or family medicine residency office. So the faculty there, they're physicians. And so where I wanted to go, educational leadership, the program here, I was worried that they wanted someone more in the education field, such as a teacher or a principal. And so I reached out to the program coordinator and I asked, I'm like, hey, I don't really work in education right now. I work in the medical field. Is it okay if I have the faculty members here do the letters of recommendation? They're technically faculty, just physicians in the medical field. And they said it was completely fine. So if you are always unsure of specifically what they're wanting, you can always reach out and ask. And so going over letters of recommendation, identify potential professors and meet them in person. Of course, if you have many to choose from, prioritize the ones that you want to ask first so you can get them first. So, and meet with them in person, or of course, with this pandemic, at least meet with them virtually so you can still see them face to face. Still, I would prefer in person. And so after you talk to them about where you want to go, you're like, hey, I want to go to this specific program, this specific school. It doesn't hurt to send them an email afterwards to have a copy of your personal statement, your resume or CV, and then remind them again which schools and academic programs you're applying to. It always helps to remind them because they might be writing other letters of recommendations for their other students. Give your professors a prompt they should follow. So prompt them with what you want them to focus on. Do you want them to talk about your leadership experience, work ethic? Make it clear what you want. Be sure to provide the program's prompt if they give one. And then let your professor know how the letters need to be submitted, because some graduate schools require the faculty to log on to a website and submit their reference electronically. However, some other graduate schools require the reference to be mailed directly to the school. In this case, provide the faculty member with a stamped addressed envelope. And of course, timing. Provide your professor with enough notice for them to do this for you. 3 months is usually the best option, 3 months in advance, because faculty are always busy, and in their free time, they want to make sure that they are catering to you and writing that letter of recommendation for you, on top of maybe other letters of recommendation for their other students. So you want to give them plenty of time to write one for you. Not going to school, graduate school right away? Well, that's okay. So there's some options you can do with trying to get a letter of recommendation. So you can either already let your professor know that you're thinking about going to graduate school, but it might not be right away. Could be a year from now, could be a couple of months from now, but you're interested in having them write a letter of recommendation for you. So 2 options. One, you can already have them write a letter of recommendation for you and just make it more generic, and I don't want to say like vague, but it's not going to be anything specific. So if it has to be catered to something, it's not gonna be, because you don't know where you're going yet. However, the other option is you can always keep in contact with the faculty member, follow up with them every 3 months or so, and give them updates about where you want to go. Maybe 3 months from now, you can say, hey, I'm already doing research and I narrowed down the schools I'm thinking about going into. These are the programs I'm thinking about. I'll reach out to you at a later date to give you an update on where exactly I'm planning on going, so you can help provide me with those letters of recommendation. And also, it doesn't hurt. Maybe if you don't want to have a faculty member write these letters of recommendation, you can have your supervisors do it. With me, for instance, I didn't have any professors from my undergraduate degree write these references for me or recommendations for me. I had my faculty that I worked with at Lee Health. So, and it can always be different. Supervisors might be able to see something different that the faculty members didn't see, or to say professors didn't see. Like with supervisors, they might see your work ethic. They might see if you come to work on time. They might see that you go beyond and above your coursework, or your work, I should say, and help others. So it doesn't hurt if you go to someone more specific and it's a supervisor and not necessarily a professor. But again, it depends on the program if they're asking for something specifically. And again, doesn't hurt to ask the program coordinator if it's okay to have your supervisor do it instead of a faculty member. And with that, that comes the end of our presentation. If you have any questions, you can contact the Career Development Center. You can always set an appointment with the career advisor to help you with planning out your graduate school. Also with personal statements, anything like that, or resume overview. But I will unshare my screen, and this can be the time we can do a Q&A session. I'm looking at the chat.
Does anyone have questions specifically about graduate school, whether it's applying or anything that you feel may be confused about with the process?
You can feel free to unmute yourselves too. You don't have to use the chat if you don't have to, or you don't want to.
Well, that's a great question, Kim. So do graduate schools prefer to have younger students? I would say it's going to depend on the schools, but from my personal experience, I think that graduate programs love to have a diverse group of students, and that includes age as well, right? So they want people that are maybe fresh out of undergrad, and they want people that have been working for a while as well, so that there can be a lot of discussion in the classroom because everyone's going to be able to bring different perspectives. So I would definitely say that schools prefer just to have this diversity piece so that there can be a lot of conversation that can happen and people can learn from each other. So I would definitely say that that shouldn't be like a deterrent at all. What's the difference between an MED and an MA? That's a great question. So Holly, that's a lot of debate within education. I will say that I personally have an MA. Rachel, do you have an MA or MED? Are you working towards?
It's gonna be an MA. I looked at the MED program here too, and for me, it looked like it catered more to teachers, specifically in education, or if you're a principal or assistant principal, anything teacher based. I think that's what the MED kind of catered to more. So that's why I went more for the MA.
Yeah, Holly, I'm not sure if there's an actual response to that. We asked that a lot. Personally, in my master's program, we all wanted to be MEDs because we thought it looked cooler and looked more distinct within education. But what our faculty told us was that essentially it just depends on where it falls within the university. So if it's housed more within because I know you're thinking about going into higher education. If it's housed more within the School of Education, then it's more likely going to be an MED. If it's housed more within psychology, then it's more than likely going to be an MA, just from my experience with faculty.
So my question is, in grad school, you really don't typically have an advisor like to help you plan your courses and schedule. So how would you plan your courses and schedule for grad school?
Yeah, so that's a good question. When it comes down to planning your courses and your schedule, typically I think a lot of programs have someone there like as a guiding factor. So whether it's your program chair or someone, you could always use DegreeWorks. But I would say that anytime you have a question about, is this the right class that I'm supposed to be taking? Is this the right sequence that I'm supposed to be taking, that you should always ask your faculty or program chair so that they can help guide you. And I think that's the difference, Tivon, between the different types of programs. So those programs that are more cohort models, you're going to be in the same classes with everyone every semester. And so you don't have as many questions about that versus if you're able to be a little bit more free in picking your courses, then you may have more questions that you need to refer to your faculty. How do you know if you need a master's degree that has a thesis option versus a non-thesis option?
Well, that's a good one because, and I'm being called out for this right now. That was the one thing that scared me about graduate school was a thesis. So I know master degree programs tend to have a thesis. For me right now with the educational leadership program I'm in, they don't really have a thesis, but you do have a portfolio, which I think is kind of in place of the thesis because at the end of the program, you do meet with some of the faculty and you kind of, it's like an interview and overall of what you learned in that portfolio. So you're kind of defending the portfolio, kind of like how you defend a thesis in a way or a dissertation if you're in a doctorate. So I don't know if you really I'm trying to read, how do you know if you need a so I don't know if you will necessarily need a master's degree program that's thesis or non-thesis. I don't know. It's kind of like, it doesn't have to be a thesis. I don't think it hurts if there is a thesis that you write about. Hannah, did you want to highlight?
Yeah, I would say that if you're thinking about going into academics, so say that your ultimate goal is to be a professor and you know that you want to be published and you want to go into more of this academia route, then it may be more beneficial for you to go into a program where your exit plan is going to be writing a thesis. Versus if you want to go more into practitioner route, so you're working a full-time job within that field, not teaching anyone, then it may be okay to do a portfolio like Rachel and I are doing as our exit, or a comprehensive exam. So those will be the typical 3 exit things, and we didn't talk about that today, but you could have a portfolio. So you just kind of talk about maybe the different areas of growth that you've had, what you've learned throughout the program. You could have a comprehensive exam, so just a big test to go over the material, or a thesis. So it's really, I think, going to depend on what your career goals are and be able to match it up a little bit better. But if you know you're not good at test taking, then maybe stay away from the comprehensive exams too. So yeah, I have test anxiety. I definitely only picked programs to apply to that didn't have comprehensive exams.
Writing lab at Center of Academic Achievement. Hi, Jory. They do also look over personal statements. So I wanted to make sure I was able to verbally say that if you weren't looking in the chat. And Denise also put in GRE workshop link at fgcu.edu. If you go to testing and review workshops, you can go there too. But Jory, did you have a question?
I'm just saying I cannot get through the personal statement, and I'm right next to the writing lab, so I know it's not easy. I'm above the traditional age of everything, and I'm interested in the higher education MA, but to put that personal statement together, and they keep offering to help. They are here. They will help. So I know it's hard to talk about yourself in a statement. So, but yes, come to us and go to the career development place. Yes.
Yes, there's so many resources here to help you, no matter if you're a student, no matter if you're a staff member, non-traditional student, it doesn't matter. There's resources here for you.
What's your opinion on GRE versus the Gmats? Amanda, I actually don't have any personal experience with the Gmats. I would say go based off of what your program wants, and just do some research about how each test is set up. I know, for example, the GRE, I had to take that for my program, and essentially it's multiple parts, but you write like 2 essays. I feel like there's a lot of test prep for the GRE out there, a lot of free test prep, and you can even sign up for, well, when you register for the test, you can opt in for free GRE practice tests. Some of them are timed, but it's the exact same format. So it helps you, if you do get anxious about testing, really be able to feel kind of at one with the test once you're there. You feel really ready.
Mm-hmm. And I would say definitely, well, for me, I picked the GRE over the Gmat because I know back when I was thinking about getting an MBA instead of educational leadership, they were kind of back and forth. Like some places accepted only a Gmat, some places were flexible with GRE or Gmat. I forgot the differences, but if you're someone who is not great with math, the GRE is better. But the Gmat, I think, has a little bit more in there. I think that was like more analytics or data. I'm trying to remember, but you can, what I did was Google, I Googled the difference between Gmat and GRE, and that's where I got the answer with where it can cater to you more. Because honestly, I thought the GRE was easier, but I never really took the Gmat, so I'm a little biased, as you can tell. But definitely do your research to tell the difference between which one is best. But I think most places accept either or for that sort of exam.
Yeah, if you're thinking about business schools, they may prefer the Gmat, but just think about the different, or just look at the different requirements for your programs. Another question, so where do I take the GRE and how much does it cost? That's some great questions. We can also put the link to the GRE website in here. The GRE is over $200. They have different structures for it now because of COVID. It used to only be where you could go and take it in a testing site, but now they actually have an option where you can take it at home. I would say with that one, I would just make sure you have really strong Wi-Fi. You know, you definitely don't want to risk your Wi-Fi going out or anything happening while you're taking the test. Okay, so where's the best place to find good packages for educational leadership programs? I know there are some schools that will offer free tuition and housing as well as graduate assistantships. So Holly, that is a perfect question. Let me actually see if I can access the NASPA registry. That would be the best bet for you to find programs in higher education. That way it'll kind of tell you a little bit more, but the big piece of this is going to be going to their actual program websites and reading about what the graduate assistantships offer. I can say from my experience that depending on the graduate assistantship, it can offer different things and pay different things. So for example, one school I was accepted into for graduate school, they had kind of satellite assistantships. And so I was offered one that paid $16,000 and had free housing, and it was going to cover my tuition. And then at the school I ended up going to, it only paid $9,000, no housing, but it covered my tuition. So you kind of got to figure out what's best for you, because every school is going to be so different, and they're all going to have different timelines for you to have to work as well.
Thank you, Rachel and Hannah, and thank you all for being here today. The Career Development Services offers a lot of resources for you. We've posted a number of them in the chat today. Be sure to make an appointment with one of our wonderful advisors if you have more questions, and if you need help with your personal statement, they are the people that will help you. We have noon Zooms every Friday till the end of the semester, and Recruitment Wednesdays, where you can visit employers, and everything's on Zoom at noon. Visit the website for all the details.